Welcome to podcast 206 from the Wiggly Sofa. I'm Heather from Wiggly Wigglers, and I'm joined today by
Richard, occasionally of Wiggly Wigglers, predominantly of Bugs and Beasties these days.
That's very good plug.
Very good plug. Well, I suppose, well, if you want to say Heather from Wiggly Wigglers, I suppose I need to say Richard of something or other.
Yes.
Certainly, yes.
Richard of Found Hope.
Richard of Found Hope, yeah, Richard of Vale.
Yes, we'll cut that out about Bugs and Beasties. How is it all going?
It's going extremely well.
What are you beastieing at?
Inundated at the moment. I'm just finishing a few days at a local school, Stretton Suggers School, not a million miles down the road, doing some willow bowers actually, and some nice chestnut steps, and some nice woven hazel hurdle fencing and things like that. But I've just started a big job at a local nursery, doing all sorts of things, tunnels and boulder mountains, and an outdoor classroom with a sedum roof and all those wonderful things that children love to be a part of. So yeah, busy.
Where is it? Do you want to give it a plug?
It's a Four-Ways nursery, in fact. Four-Ways, which is near Bartonsham. You know Bartonsham Dairies?
Yes.
It's just by there. And it's very nice for me because it's kind of local, so I don't have to get up ridiculously early in the morning to travel any great distances. I can just not set the alarm clock, in fact, and potter in, after rush hour.
Thank goodness he's not working in Wiggly Wiggler's office anymore. Here we are. Read the first review out.
Right, okay.
I'm so pleased with this review, and this person is from Chepstow.
Okay, well, that's good. That's a good prompt, because invariably I end up reading out the wrong review.
Yes.
So, and it starts.
But it's lovely having a review.
Better than Countryfile. This podcast is much better than Countryfile, or as I now call it, the Julia Bradbury Show. Okay. The team at Wiggly's give a greater insight into what it's like to live and work in the country. From Farmer Phil's working view of a farmer's life, Heather on how to run a successful business in the country, Ricardo's insights into all things environmental, even if he and Phil don't always see things the same way, and what I call Rachel's Out and About podcasts, plus Monty's face. I know, Monty's fact. You could say face. The arrow was in front of the T and the S, so I thought that's an E. I thought, how can you see Monty's face from an audio broadcast? But anyway, there you are. So plus Monty's fact. Keep up the good work, as the pictures you paint are much better than the boring goggle box. Well, that's right. That's the thing about radio. Radio can hypnotise you to a far greater extent than TV ever will. TV hypnotises you to the extent where you just fall asleep. It's a good sleeping pill, but radio stimulates the mind.
And the other thing is, Rich, we don't have to dress up for radio.
Which is just as well.
You're in your trunks, and I'm in my swimming costume today.
Especially as far as Farmer Phil's concerned, it's real dressing up.
My bathing suit
is a thing to behold. Yeah, bathing suit. Yeah, I quite like the polka dots on your bikini bottom.
Thank you. And do you like the length
as you waddled into the kitchen to make tea earlier on? Oh, that's quite nice.
And they're so fetching, just above the knee.
That's right. Michael's got his one-piece swimsuit on today. We're sat behind the table.
Yes, well, he's a long distance.
And he's Vaselined himself up because it's a bit chilly outside.
Yes, well, he'll go in the pond later. Anyway, this week we have a tea time special.
Right.
We have Trumper's Tea, Claire Trumper coming in.
Excellent. Do we have tea and tea cake?
I don't know about that, but I have got some mince pies.
Excellent.
And as it's coming up to Christmas, we're going to have mistletoe facts dotted through the tea show. So Here's the first one, Rich.
Yes.
The word mistletoe is of uncertain etymology. It may be related to German mist for dung and tang for branch, since mistletoe can be spread in the faeces of birds moving from tree to tree.
That's possibly a slightly loose guess at how the word came about, maybe, but it certainly does get spread about in birds' dung, birds dropping even. I think birds don't have dung, they have droppings.
Feces.
They have droppings, they have feces. Yeah, cows have dung, horses have dung, birds, can you imagine a bird with the extent? I think dung conjures up images of huge piles of manure.
Seagulls have a lot of it.
They're full of it, aren't they?
Yeah. Now listen, while we speak, sat in the warm house because Farmer Phil is not here.
Yeah.
And so whilst we are trying to reduce our carbon footprint, I did direct you, didn't I, Rich, to turn the heating on whilst he's not about.
Indeed. Oh, that's the door.
That
somebody
could be
here.
Claire
So I go
from
and see.
Trumpers Tea.
If I go and see, I'm not
Yeah.
not connected to any wires or anything, so I go and see who this is. And this is totally unrehearsed as well. So in fact, it is a young woman who I imagine to be Claire.
Correct.
Hello. How are you?
From Trumpers
Nice to
Tea.
see you.
Morning, folks. Nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you. Sorry. Hello, Richard.
So here's Claire on the Wiggly sofa. Nice to see you, Claire.
Thanks, Heather. It's great to be here.
Why is
Beautiful day.
Trumpers Tea called Trumpers Tea?
Well, strangely enough, Heather, that's an easy one to start with. I have a surname, which is Trumper.
I
so
do.
hence Trumpers Tea.
She's trumped me again.
Doesn't give you extra
Steady,
extra
Richard.
flatulence or anything like that.
No, steady, Richard. No, there's no health benefits within this tea any more than normal. But believe me, it's caused a lot of
benefits of tea. Because I
Lovely
drink tons of tea. In fact, I would certainly say it's my favourite drink.
That's
in a way.
fantastic.
And in fact, if there's a choice between alcohol or tea, I like getting drunk, but I enjoy drinking copious amounts of tea.
There's room for every beverage, isn't there? But this one is... I wouldn't like you to think that I was taking you off of beer or anything else like that.
No.
This is just an alternative during the day,
Yeah.
full of antioxidants. Very, very healthy.
That's
It's going
the
to keep
thing,
you
isn't it?
bouncing around. Yes.
So on balance, I mean, can you drink too much tea? Say, for instance, if I possibly drink 10 cups of tea a day, but I would say at least 10 cups of tea a day. That's okay.
No, you're absolutely fine. The caffeine is a little lower than it is in coffee. We still have caffeine in tea. There's no point in pretending there isn't.
Yeah.
And it will give you a bit of a buzz, bit of a high if you drink too much.
Right.
But you'll
I've never noticed
find...
that.
No, well, there you
No,
are then.
I
10
don't
cups
think-
plus, I think, is probably for you.
I don't think he has drunk too much.
No,
tea.
and it's a great, hydration. So keep drinking. It's almost as good as drinking water.
Is it not diuretic though, tea? Does it make you pee a little more?
No, it does with some people, but very rarely. It's not something that you would say, drink a lot of tea and it will actually help you flush out your system.
Right.
Mistletoe facts. The appearance and nature of the fruit's content, vicin, is very similar to or suggestive of human semen.
Excellent.
And this has strengthened its pagan connection.
Shall we look at this?
Yes.
Shall we look? Unfortunately, we've got a couple of choice little berries here. Let's
Right.
try this. You tell me if
Here we are,
that.
Claire.
You tell me
Thank
if
you so much.
that's right. Now, if I squeeze this berry suggestively, oh, what do you guys think? Does that look like anything that Farmer Phil has produced in the past?
Moving on.
Well, yes, absolutely. I certainly wouldn't like to
How would
comment.
you know?
I'm just going to
I thought
sit
this
here
is the
quietly,
first time you've
Richard.
been here.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. I'm saying nothing, I'm putting that in my bucket.
It's good that you two are sat on the sofa together. According to the custom of Christmas cheer, any two people who meet under a hanging bunch of mistletoe or with a burst berry in front of them are obliged to kiss.
Is that right?
This custom...
Well, sweetheart.
My lucky day.
This custom is of Scandinavian origin.
Really?
Yes.
Are you Scandinavian?
I'm not Scandinavian.
No,
No. It's possibly slightly Germanic, but no, I'm not Scandinavian. But what's interesting about this little berry is I'm wiggling them between my fingertips. It's very glutinous, isn't it? Which I suppose makes it ideal for kind of sticking against a rough bark of an apple or a pear tree.
Because
And
how does it
germinating.
spread then, Rich?
Well, it spreads either by buying twigs of mistletoe from the Wiggly catalogue and
Exactly.
then squeezing it into the clefts of a tree.
Are you all right?
Or alternatively, birds will feast on this stuff, of course, and the trees here in our county, in Herefordshire, are inundated with mistletoe. It's a most wonderful place for mistletoe to grow. Birds will scoff it and poo it out.
Or
stick
drop
to
a
the-
berry?
stick to the- stick
Do
to
they
the-
drop them?
The berries do drop, certainly, but they tend to stay intact for a long time when they're attached to the tree. Isn't there an issue with shelf life, though? I don't think they store very well once they're picked, do they? They deteriorate quite quickly.
What, as mistletoe like this?
As mistletoe like that, but certainly the berries, because
The
they're
berries-
sifted, they go really squishy and whatnot.
Yeah,
So.
the berries are really iffy. But this mistletoe, which we've picked on the 9th of December,
Right.
will
And it's
last
still looking
well
good now.
into the Christmas season.
Yeah.
In fact, Billy is out there today
Is he?
picking our mistletoe with a choppy thing on top of a stick.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Does he get paid handsomely for that, or is it
Certainly
like
not.
is that what he has to do for his Christmas dinner?
So, back to the tea. Claire, tell us all about how the heck you've become a tea expert.
Well,
I presume you are a tea expert.
Well, I hope so, yes. I've got my spoon actually here with my initials on it, which you only get initialed and given to you, presented to you in the trade, when you actually go through your trainees. So I've a fully fledged tea buyer blender now. I started over 20 years ago with Tetley, a large company that you may have heard of, and had the most fantastic training with them. And as an agricultural student, I thoroughly enjoyed it was just over a year of travelling to different tea estates around the world.
Oh wow!
That I had with them, which was a great opportunity to join
Where
a
were you
company and
based?
see the world. I was down in London, just outside Ealing, Greenford, on the A40. As you drive down into London, you sometimes smell the tea.
Right.
We used to have a factory outside of Greenford, and we could actually smell the tea and coffee, Lion's coffee as it was then, actually being brewed, so you could smell it as you drove into London. And we were based down there. And as I say, doing a lot of travelling, buying on forward contract, working with brokers, going out to the tea estates, working with the producers, with the farmers out there, and really learning from sort of literally from bush to cup, all the manufacture involved in between. And then back at Tetley, sort of obviously the buying and the tasting side. And as a trainee, you would be called out of your office to train with whichever buyer was tasting at the time. And I would probably, for my first 2 years, do nothing but taste tea all day.
Right.
No biscuits, no dunking.
Oh,
but I would
no.
taste about...
Tasting.
Terrible, isn't it? But I would taste about 1,000 to 1,200 cups of tea a day.
Good work if you can get it.
Absolutely right. Even
So
better
you're-
if you can dunk your biscuits.
You were on a permanent tea break.
Yes, totally.
You know
Totally.
What do you do? That's right. Yeah, that's right. What do
I
you
got
do?
paid for
What do
those,
you do
great.
for a tea break? Well, you know, if you go, if you want to go off, have your tea break. So no,
So she goes off and does a moment of work.
I don't want to do it.
Best bit is the coffee that they produce about 11 o'clock in the morning. And it's coffee break all of a sudden.
Ah, yeah.
Okay.
And then your
Right.
gin and tonic at about 6 o'clock, just to rinse your mouth.
Yeah.
And make sure that your palate is clean for the following
course.
day.
Yeah, you didn't split that
very,
out.
very important. Yeah, very, very important.
Did you have your taste buds tested then?
When you're being interviewed, they do sort of look at you, they go out onto a counter and they sort of ask you, do you taste the difference between these 3 or 4 cups of tea? And you sort of try and have to describe in layman's terms what you see.
Are you the Jilly Goulden of tea?
I like to think so,
Oh,
Emma.
yeah.
You know how it is. But yeah, it is great actually. By the time you've done your first year, you're blindfolded every day. And for sort of,
Why did you
once a
do
day.
it?
Yeah, sorry, not all day.
Oh,
Once
on
a
the
day,
tube.
you'll go through a counter and you'll be blindfolded.
Oh.
And you'll have to taste these different teas and work out which estate it comes from. So which country initially,
Gosh.
beginning of the year, it's which country. And by the end of the year, they're looking for you to be able to tell which estate in that country it comes from.
Right.
Did you
And
ever guess?
Oh gosh, we had so many different counters. I was hopeless to start with, but it's amazing how quickly your palate changes.
Isn't that incredible?
And I went back to Tetley last year, and I was still able to taste in the same way as I could, you know, sort of 20 odd years ago,
Wow.
which is amazing.
Yeah,
Once
yeah.
you've developed your palate, you know, it's there for life.
Right, presumably teas are grown slightly different geography, so
Yes.
can you associate
Very
the
much
whether
so.
they're grown in a lowland
Yes.
area or an upland area?
Yeah,
or-
very much so. Altitude has a huge impact on the viscosity, on the thickness of the tea.
Right.
And it gets a lot thinner as you go up the sort of hillsides,
That
up the
would make sense,
mountainsides.
wouldn't it?
Yeah,
That would
very,
make sense.
very much
Does
so.
that make it less tasty then?
No, sometimes actually it becomes more flavoursome because the bush grows a lot slower at high altitude, where the air is thinner and probably a lot colder, so it doesn't have such a sort of long growing periods as it does down on the plains. It only grows for short spurts during the day when the sun's out,
Yeah.
and so the actual taste is kept within the leaf, and those leaves can be really tasty.
Right then, Claire, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What have you brought?
Well, I brought a selection of teas and herbal infusions for us today, and I've got a couple of teapots to make some tea for us to taste as if we were consumers. And then I've got some slurping and spitting for you to do in what I call ordinary tea buyer kit. So I'm going to make some teas up in various different ways, and also in our biodegradable tea bags. So I've got a whole range, so I'll get making, shall I?
Pop kettle on, laugh.
Right.
Mistletoe fact. Mistletoe was often considered a pest that kills trees and devalues natural habitats. But recently it was recognised as an ecological keystone species, an organism that has a disproportionately pervasive influence over its community. Good old Wikipedia.
Excellent.
What do you reckon that means then? A broad array of animals depend on mistletoe for food, consuming the leaves, the young shoots, transferring pollen between plants and dispersing the sticky seeds.
Yeah, I'm just wondering the diversity of animals. You know, I mean, what do you imagine could feed on a big clump of mistletoe that's 20 foot in the air?
A giraffe.
A giraffe. You just don't get those. You don't get them anymore in Herefordshire. It's a long time
deer.
since I've seen one. I mean,
A long-necked deer.
A few birds and things like that. I think Wikipedia being slightly exuberant over there the descriptions of the being that mistletoe is. I mean, certainly birds love it, don't they? I mean, birds have redwings and fieldfares, and the thrush family certainly scoff mistletoe berries, but I think even they can have too much of a good thing. So,
well, I think it's because more than 240 species of birds nest in it.
240 species of birds. See, this is a bit Wikipedia-like. I mean, we don't even have 240 species of birds
worldwide, I think.
in the UK. Oh, worldwide,
Yes.
possibly. Do you know, I've never, ever seen a bird's nest in a clump of mistletoe.
Nor me, Rich.
So I wonder who put
I hope
that
there
information.
isn't any,
It
because
just goes to
Billy's
show
busy
how-
chopping it down today.
Yeah, and mistletoe can be quite detrimental to the health of fruit trees. It literally kills trees. In fact, my friends were saying the other day, because we've had such wet seasons over the last few years, the mistletoe in their orchards has gone bananas and having to cut it out like Billy-O because it's quite literally killing the trees. There's that much of it.
Good Lord. Well, hello to Millie, who today is at the mistletoe auction at Tenbury Wells, Nick Champion's mistletoe auction, and she is busy taking all the money.
Fantastic.
Lovely.
Is she making much money, do you think?
I reckon so. Apparently they have thousands and thousands and thousands of buyers and thousands of sellers, but she gave me a really handy tip for attending the auction, which I shall be pleased to pass on worldwide.
Excellent.
And that is, if you buy it, get it in your truck straight away and lock it up.
Right.
Because there's a lot of iffy characters about that want to sell it again.
Right. There you are.
Certainly not Nick Champion, but his clientele who bring the mistletoe are not necessarily of the quality of Billy.
Right.
Herefordshire, Worcestershire and I think Shropshire are the main growing places of mistletoe, and you don't get much.
We've got a perfect climate here, haven't we? I mean, this.
What do they like? What does it like?
I think it just likes moisture, certainly.
We got that.
And it likes warmth, and I suppose it likes the prevailing conditions that the West Country offers. You know, perfect.
Back to tea. Has the kettle boiled, Claire? Kettle's just boiling. Time for tea. Looking forward to this, Rich?
I am looking forward to this. I'm looking across the table here, and there's a assortment of clear jugs with sieves inside them. In fact, there's a proper name for those clear jugs with sieves inside them, isn't there?
Is it teapot?
could be teapot, but I'm sure.
That would be it, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Posh looking teapot. They've got interesting,
Bowden.
almost inverted funnels though, rather than the other way round. These cups seem to have little corrugated sides.
Right, we're going to take you back to my trainee days, and I've got proper tea tasting kit here to start off with.
Do you spit or swallow, Hev?
Oh, I say. Right. As I say, proper tasting kit here. I'm starting the clock.
That'll be edited.
Yeah, good. Right, I've started the clock going. I've got 6-minute brew here, and I've also got double the normal amount of tea that most of us would use to make ordinary cups of tea.
Is it crucial how long the kettle is boiled? Is it crucial to put boiling water on the tea? Because somebody told me in Brederdine, in a farmhouse, that if you used your boiling kettle, it burnt the tea.
Right, okay, well that farmer was very correct in many ways. Now, to make a perfect cup of tea...
Wow.
I don't believe
Well done, Fred.
You need freshly drawn water. That's the key. So what we've got this morning, freshly drawn water. Never use the dregs of water that's already been boiled in your kettle to use for your pot of tea. Really? Because the oxygen is gone. And it's the oxygen we need that actually gives the brightness and the real good appearance in your cup of tea. If you take that out, you get a really dull, sort of lacklustre cup of tea, and some of the flavour disappears as well. Okay. So oxygen's really important in making a tea. So freshly drawn boiling water. And then the tea for black tea, our normal sort of builder's tea, you were talking about Yorkshire tea earlier on.
Yorkshire tea. It's hard to beat, isn't it, Yorkshire tea?
It is hard to beat.
The shop bought tea, that's got to be the best, isn't it?
It's the most fantastic blend.
My gran said Tetley's is the dust off the floor.
Well, you see, the problem is with tea bags, we've
No,
No, and Tetley's have given me a great start in life, so no, I'll defend them to the hilt when they need defending. But we all want quick brews, and we think that quick brews is colour. So as soon as we see colour appearing in a cup, we think that's it. That's great.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, you do tend to think you do tend to associate a good cup of tea with colour. With the depth
so
of
we
colour,
don't let it brew, and we don't let those flavours actually come out, because it's the juices, the chemicals, the oils, actually natural oils within the tea that we need time to actually infuse and come out into the cup.
Right.
And if you've got a tea bag, you're on a bit of a sort of bad start anyway, because the tea has been finely chopped to actually give you that large surface area to volume ratio, which basically means you'll get that colour coming out very, very quickly, because all of the particles are surrounded by water very quickly, so the tea brews very, very quickly.
We believe that.
Right.
Which is science. You see, science on the sofa. Yeah. But they want that, consumers want that very, very quickly. With large leaf, you need to allow the tea a good 3 to 4 minutes to brew.
Right.
The tea will only sort of give you that real depth of flavour if it's given time to brew. But as going back to the tea bags a minute, the leaf is chopped very finely to give you that real quick infusion. But in doing so, the leaf is then exposed to the air, and the oils, the natural oils within the leaf, actually start to evaporate. You can't help but do that. You can't seal that in. And so some of your flavour is lost already before it even gets to the consumer.
My gran would never have tea bags.
Right.
And she always had loose leaf tea. But then again, my gran used to wash it with Daz.
Right.
She never moved on to fair liquid,
Well, there we are.
Right.
Yeah, perfect.
That's an interesting point you make there. I mean, it's a thing close to my heart is the fact that loose leaf tea should be and is less expensive. We don't buy it, and I think perhaps we should. But I mean, what's a quick and easy way of making a cup of tea as fast as you can make a cup of tea with a tea bag using loose leaf tea?
Well, I've got a couple of what I call gadget teapots, which have got the metal filter and plunger inside, which is very, very convenient.
So it's like what is it called? Cafetiere.
It is exactly like a cafetiere.
Won't the metal taint the tea?
No, it doesn't. Metal's fine. It's stainless steel, and it stays as good as the day is long. It's absolutely fine. And these are fabulous because they're almost like a Pyrex glass. They look fabulous on your dinner table to serve tea after dinner and impress your guests. I do, actually.
Oh,
that's good, yes.
But I would say a big but here.
Yeah.
If you've got an ordinary teapot, all you need is a strainer.
Okay.
No one should ever sort of fly away from drinking loose leaf tea thinking you need a gadget like this. You don't.
No.
But don't worry, I'll coach you later. How much are they?
Oh, sorry. Yes, no, that's not very good to the marketing, is it?
Let's use it then. Can we use it?
We're going to use those in a minute.
Oh, right.
Can I just make these teas that I'm making sort of tea tasting style for you first?
Yes.
As you'll say, no milk in there, but the time is going to go off in there.
Ah.
You see? As if by magic, we'll stop that. Now, you noticed earlier a little serrated edge. That's to help me bend over the table here.
So just to reiterate, how long has that tea been brewing?
That's been brewing for 6 minutes.
Okay.
Which is what I would say double the amount of time, Richard.
Now this is very cool. Now, so what you're doing with your cool sort of corrugated lip teacups with a lid on is you've inverted them to a slant in a lovely little white bowl. and the tea is dribbled into it, and you haven't spilled a speck on the table.
Not yet.
Pretty
no,
impressive.
that's very nice of you to say.
She has,
actually.
just
Yeah. We will ignore that.
Now, you see,
Oh.
if I invert that, which I would normally do, and get all the nice leaf out to show you the leaf, I will make a real mess of Heather's table.
That's okay.
So,
Do it, babe.
are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, right, here we
Totally
go.
happy.
Are you sure?
Okay.
Yes.
So shaking
Yeah, get
that
it on
now
there.
and all the tea. Can
Luckily
you
it
read
is
the tea leaves in the bottom of a cup? Can you?
Do you know, I've never done that.
No?
So, I'm sure we can find someone that
We
can.
could pretend. I mean, I'm sure
Look
we
at
can
that.
do it.
Isn't that
Just,
a beautiful cup?
makes, it is,
I don't know.
Well, there's a real contrast here
Yeah.
in colours. I mean, we've got the end
Oh.
that looks a bit like Bisto, which I would think as a nice conventional cup of tea. I mean,
Don't worry
that to
about
me
mess.
looks lovely. The
Yeah.
middle one looks like.
Oh,
Chicken
go on,
broth.
how are you going to say that then?
It does look a bit like pea, I suppose.
Lovely, very
Yeah,
nicely
so
put.
that's okay.
Yeah.
And the end one is a slightly
Looks more
again
normal?
a lot brighter, but yes, it has a sort of certain rustic charm about it, I guess, but not as dark as the one that we've got on our far right.
So glad you can't see me here because I'm grimacing because that's
Right.
hot water.
It's beautifully presented. I mean,
Yeah,
you've
yes.
kind of turned the pots over now. All the tea leaves are just adorning the edge of the bowls.
Oh, I can start to smell.
They do look a wonderful colour. It does look great. The picture that's in front of us is something that you imagine to be on the back of your tea box, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's the perfect thing. And you think, oh, wow, look at that. Which one have I got?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So there we are. What I've got there is 3 different teas, just to sort of show you the different range. I've got your English breakfast, which is I call your sort of builder's blend, really.
Okay.
Your everyday blend
And that's,
that you would
that's
probably.
the lighter of the 2 dark ones.
Yes, absolutely. It's a lovely sort of deep red colour, really.
Okay.
We would normally grade that on a visual grading to start with. We would look at brightness and we would look at what we call depth of colour,
Right.
the redness in the cup. The brightness, the sort of reflection, what does it look like? It's quite a nice bright day
It is
in here.
bright,
and you
isn't
can
it? So
see
it
the
doesn't,
sort
to
of
me, that
reflection
has a certain
coming
sheen
out
to
there.
it. Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't. The light isn't sort of absorbed like it is more towards the end one
I see.
here.
Right.
I'd say that was more like a blackboard. It's absorbing the light,
Okay.
whereas that's more reflecting the light.
I see.
When you then taste it, you're looking for the thickness, the viscosity.
Right. Well, should we taste some?
Shall we taste some?
let's
Yeah,
taste
now I've
some
only
and
got
we
one
can-
soup spoon in here with me, which is my spoon, very rudely calling it a soup spoon.
Yeah,
Shall I
it's
get
very-
us one?
Would you
Very-
mind
yeah.
getting
Very-
another
very-
couple of
very
spoons?
posh
That would be
spoon,
great,
yeah.
Heather. And then I'm going to get
So I
you
move-
both to taste, please, if
Maybe
you
I'll
would.
You're
I'll
gonna
give you a
have to do the
demonstration,
pouring as
Richard.
well, or the dipping, because otherwise it'll end in tears and we'll be spilling it all over
Now
the
I'm
place.
going to put your sort of a very
Okay.
attractive
So we've got
bucket here.
half a.
Oh.
What,
Yeah,
not-
sorry about that.
isn't
Do you want me to
necessarily
put that on the floor, or are you all right?
Yeah, no, you can do whatever
Now
you
the
want.
big trick here, when you
Okay.
take a bit of tea like that in your
Right.
spoon, not full.
Right.
Now you need to take a sort of deep breath
Yeah.
and do everything that your mum and your granny said never to do,
Yeah.
and suck in with as much air as possible, making as much noise as possible,
Okay.
and that will throw the tea onto the back of your mouth and into the top of your throat,
Yeah.
where all your taste buds are,
Right.
and you'll start to get the flavours.
Right.
So here goes. And then you spit it out
Nice.
so delicately.
Yes, charming. I haven't seen that for a long time.
So there we go. Good competition on a Friday night in the pub. Sorry, I should have warned you about that last bit, shouldn't I? So,
Gosh.
Oh, it's brilliant.
oh, lovely, but it's
It's
there we
definitely,
are.
yeah,
Now, come on, who's going to go first?
I'm not
Heather.
sure.
Heather's,
Wow.
Heather's going to have to go
So this
first.
one?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just remember, though, folks, that it is very, very strong.
Can't
compared to how
eat
you
it,
would normally.
can't drink it.
You
then.
could, of course you could.
Well, I
Let's
prefer
move this out of the
to.
What
way.
I'm trying to do is get the flavours to you.
All right,
so
okay.
we,
Here we
would,
go.
we would taste it. Oh, perfect.
I must have drunk.
Oh, it's very good. There's another go.
I've done that before.
Yes, yes,
I must swallow.
Complete chaos. We've descended into Bedlam here.
Involuntary response to anything that goes in, can't go out.
Right,
Oh, fair
okay.
play. So what was it? So the
Wow.
taste experience, what do you think?
It's zinged up all round left and right,
Yeah.
and right on the back of my head somewhere.
Right.
Great.
I've never tasted anything quite like
Quite
it.
like it. Okay. Well, as I say, a little bit
And
stronger.
it's
than
dried
you would-
my
That's
mouth up.
Yes, it has. Now, we've got a blend here. Most English breakfasts are a blend of Kenyans, North Indians, Assams, and Sri Lankans. So your Kenyans do that sort of drying bit in your mouth, and they attribute to the brightness in the cup. Your Assams are almost if you've dropped a malted biscuit, a digested biscuit in your cup and you've disappeared at the bottom of the cup.
Right.
They're quite malty and they add some thickness when you're actually tasting, but you won't see anything visually. And then your Ceylons just sort of mellow the whole thing out. So if you were to drink it that strong, you could actually drink it and survive. It wouldn't, sort of dry your mouth out completely.
That's handy, because I have drunk it.
No, that's right. But it won't dry you out completely. Come on, Richard, you haven't...
Okay.
Come on, Rich.
You haven't participated.
Yeah.
Come on.
Try and spit, I suggest.
Yeah, try and spit. So I'm ladling this little number out of the thing and trying not to spill it anywhere as I do in the process. So it's quickly slurp it in. There's obviously a knack to. There's always a knack to it.
You're right there, Richard.
Nailed the stuff. That's right.
Sorry.
Well, saying, you're not supposed to be.
1,200 cups a day. There you are. You see. So shall we move rapidly on?
I can see why it takes a little while to
Yes,
the hang of it.
master the
Yeah.
art.
Can you imagine? We at Tetley, some of the larger companies didn't actually taste with milk, but Tetley luckily did taste with milk because we were trying to mimic what most consumers would see every day.
Yes, well, I was going to ask about that because it's all very well and fine, but I've never had tea like that.
No, that's right. No, well, to me, you'll only get the real depth of flavour through without the milk because the milk will actually not taint it, but it will certainly put your mind in a different direction as to what sort of flavours are there.
So do you drink your tea without milk?
I drink black tea like that with milk because that's my preference. But when
Black
I'm tasting
tea with
as
milk?
a business, that's what I would call black tea.
I see.
Black tea as in the black leaf as opposed to green leaf like this one here.
Okay.
Should we go on to the next one?
Yeah.
We started talking about green leaf. Green teas have become very, very popular in the last couple of years, really. As soon as the larger brands started moving towards green tea and talking about all the health benefits that you can
But
attribute.
does anyone like it?
Well, no, you see...
Good Lord.
are there any additional health benefits?
You see, green teas, because the fermentation process is stopped, to actually keep the leaf in its green leaf state, the antioxidants are held within the leaf, and they're not released as quickly as they are when the leaf goes through full fermentation to produce a black tea.
I see.
So the green tea, it is no myth. There has been quite a lot of sort of scientific research done that the green leaf actually has higher antioxidant bodies than black leaf, and they're really fantastic for your defence, for your immune system.
Right.
But green tea, sadly, very sadly, has a very bad reputation from a lot of people, and they like to think they'll buy and drink green tea because it's doing them good, but they don't actually enjoy it, but like you've just said, Heather.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Now, the trick is...
Yeah, I must admit, I've never enjoyed green tea.
There is a trick, because when you stop... Here we are, let's have a look at this leaf here. When you stop the leaf turning into black tea, as we've just been describing, the tannins actually get stuck on the outside of the leaf.
Right.
And it's the tannins that give you that bitterness and that drying in the mouth.
Okay.
And so what you have to do when you're making a pot of tea for yourself or a cup of tea is just take a pinch of green tea like this, put it into your pot, put it into your cup, pour the first lot of water on. This is where Fred would also be quite correct. Never use boiling hot water for green tea.
Okay.
Always use the kettle just before or after the boil.
Right.
So it's about sort of 70, top 70s, 80 degrees Celsius. And then rinse the leaf. Give it a bit of a jiggle round, not very much water, but give the leaf a jiggle around and throw that water away. And then take the kettle again, pour your water on again, and only use that infusion.
Right.
Because otherwise you'll have that bitterness that will come out in your cup every single time. And if you don't do that...
you come
Absolutely, just for that, Heather.
Just for that.
There you are.
It's so enlightening, isn't it?
So it's so sad. So the Chinese and the Japanese look at us over here thinking, what are you doing? Putting your green tea into tea bags and just drinking it straight off. Yeah, quite. Absolutely.
Let's
so have a taste of this. So obviously this hasn't been rinsed, so there will be some drying characteristics there. But you can get rid of that when you are a normal consumer. Right. So this again is I haven't put 6 grams into this,
again?
But yeah, sure.
It was good. It was quite interesting.
Are you ready now? Here we go.
Good Lord. You do that in casual fashion.
Yeah, I can do that and sort of carry on almost talking. It's great. But try that.
The last bit that makes
I'm trying not to. Yeah, because it could get very messy. So I'm going to pass that one towards you.
In fact, I could probably get good money
Right.
from that. To be
Yes, it's a shame. Sorry, get the bucket ready. There we are.
Because it's important now to spit, isn't it?
Now, I'm hoping when you perhaps keep it in your mouth for a little while before
Okay.
you spit it out, and hopefully you'll get some lovely flavours in that. Without laughing, there are some better flavours that perhaps you wouldn't have tasted in some of green teas before.
That's good. Nice bit of saliva there as well.
Well,
bubbles.
Grass.
It is. It is very green, very sort of juicy, very
Grass.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's a green tea product, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is that sort of raw green plant
It
material.
reminds me of the moment I drank wheatgrass.
Oh no, it's not as horrible as that. Well, I don't think it is.
I
Gosh,
love the first one,
that
Claire.
really is.
Okay, well,
Good. You like the first one?
Let me just try with
Okay.
this crazy stuff then.
Good.
Just to
But if it's doing you good, I mean,
Yeah.
that is bearable.
But just make sure this is too strong for you.
And spit.
That's it. Perfect this time.
I've tasted worse.
Brilliant.
I have to say.
I think that's a positive.
That's almost part of it. It's not. It doesn't have that depth of flavour though. It's not a comfort drink, is it?
Oh gosh, no.
It's more a kind of you do it because you're either very thirsty or purely because you want to try and make yourself healthier off the back of it.
I'm not a great herbal infusion lover, I have to admit, hands up now. I sort of joined the trade before all of the herbal infusions really hit the market, and I'm afraid I never had to really go into huge detail with those until my sort of last few years in the trade. But green tea, I think, is, for me, again, we're saying it's all personal preference. It's like wine, it's like anything. Green tea, to me, is far more palatable than drinking a chamomile.
Right.
It's
Yes,
lowering.
well,
now you started. Yes.
Yeah, chamomile's to walk over, isn't it? Not to drink.
Yeah, absolutely. But
well, in your case,
I
to
think,
sit on.
To sit on. Yes, that's right.
I think we'll make it later, sort of after this great episode or whatever, but we'll make it later for you and rinse it as I've just described. And I think you'll get some lovely flavours from it, especially when it's chilled. Beautiful in the summer, very, very refreshing.
I can imagine. I do like iced tea.
Yeah,
especially Lipton's. That's probably because it's got loads of sugar in it.
Right. Yes. No. That would be a natural iced tea product, Richard.
In fact, you're probably right. I think something like that in the summertime.
Very
would be
delicate,
very nice
very
indeed.
refreshing.
Yeah.
Where's that from, Claire?
It's from China. It's from the Sichuan province in China.
And have you been to each place that you get tea from?
I have, yes.
And is that the
that's
point
the
of-
delight, really.
Is that why have
Yes.
you started this company?
Well, it's a bit of a mad one, really, isn't it?
Competing against Tetley's doesn't
Yeah,
sound.
well-
Oh gosh.
It's a niche. I suppose it's a niche, though, isn't it? Again, it's like a bit like a Wiggly's thing. It's that. It's appealing to a discerning tea drinking audience.
Is that it, or?
I believe it is, and I think we are going to sort of really catch the revolution of the tea industry, and people are going back to loose leaf tea. The afternoon tea market is really taking off. Some of the larger cities and towns, you have to book. I believe even in Abergavenny you have to book to get into the afternoon tea.
Right.
That's
which is
lovely.
absolutely fantastic.
It is.
We have all these silly, crazy breakfast meetings. People are starting to move towards afternoon tea meetings and sort of doing tea and sort of sandwiches and things for their staff. So it's more acceptable for men and women that have perhaps got childcare issues and things rather than breakfast meetings.
Now,
And that really is, I think it's far more sociable. I really do.
I have a good friend called Jonathan, and he runs Tregosnan Estate.
Yes.
And he grows tea bushes.
He does. Fantastic.
And I love that idea. But, you're buying this in from places all around the world.
Yes.
Why don't you grow it? Would that be practical? Is that the solution?
It would be a fantastic project if you've got a bit of land out there, Heather. I think Jonathan is fantastically lucky. Of course, tea is a Camellia sinensis. So where Jonathan is down at Tregosnan, it's a fantastic climate for growing camellias. They grow world-class camellias in Cornwall. And my great-grandfather was actually a head gardener down at Tregosnan.
Oh, wow.
So he was a big, so there's a bit of history down there.
Yeah.
Been down to see the estate, and it's a real treasure to go and see. As you walk through that wonderful garden gate and then see a tea estate in front of you, it's quite something. It really is beautiful. But because it's that wonderful sort of microclimate down there, It's fine to grow. It's a little bit warmer than perhaps we have up here in Hereford sometimes. Yeah. It's damp but not torrential rain like we have on the sort of Welsh borders here, and it's just that little bit protected, and it's great for growing tea.
Right.
And the jats that he's brought over are all from Darjeeling and from northern India. They're used to more rain than sort of some of the Kenyan or the Malawian crops that have to grow in very dry conditions. You know, you think of Africa at the moment, they didn't get their long or their short rains this year. So tea over in Kenya, Malawi, Tanzania, real shortage, serious shortage of tea this year. And the auction is sort of showing that in the costs that we're having to pay.
Yeah. So are you saying that if we couldn't rely on tea grown in Europe, there'd be too much?
Yeah, we grow so little tea. Say down in Cornwall, he's got about seven acres. We're talking about vast estates that we've got over in Kenya and Assam, and we just couldn't match that. And I also think, from where I'm coming, let's stick to what we do best. I think it's great for Tregothnan. It's a fantastic project for Jonathan, and a superb product that he's got. It really is a very, very tasty tea.
Oh!
Yeah, really is a tasty tea, so well done, Jonathan. But I also think it's a great cash crop for some of the economies that have traditionally grown tea.
How do you make sure that your trade is fair? Do you do that by visiting?
Yes, I've visited all the estates that I buy from. When I left Tetley, I went more into development. So I first joined VSO and lived in a mud hut in Zimbabwe for a couple of years, working with farmers, going back to my agricultural roots, but really found a passion for working with communities, with farmers. And so then I wanted to do something more with tea and that sort of community relationship. Yeah. So I moved into fair trade and found various different roles with not only with the big sort of companies like Cafe Direct, Tradecraft, Equal Exchange, but I've also worked for some of the larger sort of charities like Oxfam and government funded by DFID to actually work on projects alongside farmers overseas to look at their consistency of control, to look at their quality issues, to look and to make sure they still have food security alongside their cash crops, which is obviously hugely important to all of us. But for me, having worked alongside them, that is one of the key issues for me, that they don't put their tea product, in front of food security for their own families. So I've lived and worked in these estates. I spent the last sort of 7 years predominantly based in Africa, but then travelling around from there. And been very, very lucky to work for companies like Cafe Direct that have actually given me the opportunity to do that.
What about environmental implications of tea growing, though? I mean, you mentioned tea being a great cash crop. Well, so is palm oil, but production of palm oil, of course, essentially rapes the ecosystems that it's grown in. So what about tea? We're
very fortunate in places like Kenya, I think, and also sort of the hillsides of somewhere like Darjeeling. Right. You couldn't grow those other crops, thank goodness. It's just too steep. You wouldn't get your...
And are there any sort of... I mean, is the habitat compromised because of the...
No. In actual fact, I would say where I've been, in Uganda, for example, I worked on a project out in Uganda where the tea crop is actually used as a barrier around the national parks to actually stop the animals coming out from the national parks. They won't come through tea. It's a very dense crop, so they don't want to walk through that. And so then they don't come...
Get the elephants whipping their tusks around the
so then they don't...
trunks around
no,
the
that's right.
Those
absolutely not.
Tasty tea leaves. No?
And then they leave the sort of farming, the community lands alone by sort of having that barrier of tea, that strip of tea.
So that's a wonderful natural barrier.
It is. Yeah, it's absolutely superb. And then it allows
I love Trumpist tea already.
I've learned so much this morning. In fact, I can't really recall a morning where I've learned as much in such a short space of time.
That's very kind, Richard.
Yeah, that's true, though.
The third one.
Very kind. Are you going to try this last one?
I think we should.
I do.
It's got very, very deep red colour now. This is the Red Bush, the rooibos tea. Ladies' #1 detective agency. Yeah. This is what she always drank when she was having a very tricky sort of, investigation. Very tricky morning like this, really. Yes. An investigation that she couldn't reach a conclusion on. So she was always drinking this, putting the kettle on for this. Right. It's a natural grass. It's not actually...
It does look gorgeous.
It's not actually a camellia plant. So it's a grass. It's a wild grass. Yeah. It's only grown in the Cedarburg Mountains of South Africa. Right. And because it's a grass, it's naturally caffeine-free. And it's also, again, very, very high, rich in antioxidants, very similar to the green tea. It's got a very similar antioxidant level and the same useful sort of immunity-boosting antioxidants. It has a very different taste profile to your other teas that you've just come off of.
She's warning us.
Yes, I am, because some people either love it or they will never go back again.
Okay.
Exciting!
Let's see.
It's a little bit oaky, smoky, I think.
Get it over to,
and you've got to make sure that you
Madam
miss those
over here.
loose tea leaves in there.
Move.
So have a go, Heather. See what you
The-
think.
The mad... Good Lord.
Fantastic. You're getting better with every slurp, Heather.
Look
Oh,
at
perfect that time.
Love
As though
it.
you've
You
done
like
it,
that?
as though you've done it several times.
Now you see.
Fresh.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, gosh,
Love
well,
it.
And you
that's
can
not too
drink
bad,
that stronger, you
It's
see,
good
than
that
some of the...
Well, you're going to like that.
Let's keep talking over the top of there, yes. Now, what do you think? It is very different,
That's very
isn't
nice. I like that.
Handy.
It is quite different, but
Yeah.
it's really nice. I do. It's got a real depth of flavour, but it's got a depth of flavour. It's not harsh.
No.
Because actually, if you look at that, it looks like it's been brewed
that's
for,
right,
for
absolutely.
every day.
Yeah.
But the reality is that it's got quite subtle undertones.
You
Yeah.
want more of
Really
that,
nice.
don't
Good.
you?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, the South Africans have used rooibos for generations, and we're very slow to pick up on that again in this country. But
And, does it contain the same kind of quantities of antioxidants that conventional tea does? Or?
the same as the green, but
Same as the green?
much higher than the black tea. Much higher.
Okay. Right.
So it's
and is it
very...
a lot more expensive? I mean, if you can
No,
you
not
find
at
this
all.
on the shelves?
No, the likes of the big brands, the Twinings and the Tetley have all gone along. Then,
Okay.
of course, we've got Trumpers tea that Heather's very
Yes,
kindly
indeed.
holding up
Indeed.
there. Trumpers tea.
Okay, all right. Well,
Now, let me tell you-
Taste this. Okay, now this is there's how much? So there's 125 grams in that pouch, right?
Yeah.
And how many cups of tea would that make?
Oh, there's a good 50 in that, 50 plus.
cups of tea. And how much would somebody have to pay to get that through the post?
That would be £4.50 in that refill like that.
£4.50.
Yeah.
So that's actually not too bad at all,
Not
is
at all.
it?
No, not at all.
It's a
Well done,
wonderful
Rich.
treat. Yeah, you see how I did that?
Thank you very
good,
much.
that's
It was a
good
good
intent. Yeah, it's
plug
absolutely
there.
true,
Thank
though.
you,
It's a
Trumpers tea there, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Just give
Can
me I need the picture in my mind of your place. So have you got like a big
I'm not sure you do,
saucepans
actually.
of tea with a tap on the bottom, and then you sort of put them into little bags, or...
Well, no, I hate to say this, having come from Tetley with the big machinery and everything, I've gone back to floor blending, which is what we stopped over sort of 15 years ago in the tea industry because of all the dust. But I'm only blending very, very small quantities. I've come back to Hereford, I've taken over my parents' house, and I've put a new blending floor in their attic.
What's a blending floor?
It's a wooden floor, but we've got to make sure that it's got a surface on it that when I use my shovel, that I don't get any chippings or anything in that. So it's got a special laminate... Splinters. You wouldn't want splinters in your rooibos, would you?
No.
So I actually put a cover down when I'm blending, and then I go around and I'm weighing out my kilos of tea, and I only do small batches at a time.
Right.
Because again, with
Do you do this all
large
this on
leaf...
your own, or?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, madly I do.
That's quite nice, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, working
Yes,
by
I'm
yourself,
saying
it's,
that,
it's,
though.
quite, it's quite a lovely thing.
My
I think,
my
maybe.
parents and my friends, if I didn't have them, I wouldn't be alive and kicking now.
Right.
My father does all the labelling that you can see here,
Okay,
so that's
okay.
down in his study.
Right.
And my mum helps me with all the packaging, and she's absolutely fantastic with the heat sealer. A bit
Well
random
done,
at
Mum.
times, but she's brilliant.
Yeah.
But with a large leaf like that, you really wouldn't want to blend more than sort of 4 kilos at a time, because when I'm blending, you could actually damage the leaf. So I need to be very careful that I'm only blending small quantities at a time.
Right.
And so yes, I'm very I'm let loose and making up my own blends,
Yeah.
using my own experience, using what comes in. Obviously, throughout the year, we will get changes in taste profile of these different teas.
Right.
The rains. If there's a dry patch like in Kenya at the moment, the leaves are going into banji, they're actually stopping growing,
Right.
and that again gives it a different characteristic.
Okay.
And so I have to blend to keep a consistent blend throughout the year so that you don't say, oi, 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 what's Trumpers tea done this time?
Yeah.
So I taste my different individual teas and then say, right, this is the recipe that I need to make to actually get that particular blend tasting the same week after week.
Do sacks of tea come in like Hessian bags from...
Yes,
What does it look
I
like?
would say sadly, because when I first started, it was all tea chests.
Oh,
And of
yeah.
course, I say
Wow.
sadly, only from my passion of what it used to look like.
Yeah.
But of course, environmentally, that would be impossible nowadays.
Yeah. It's
So
so
we come in
expensive as
paper sacks, yeah, of course. But paper sacks with foil lining to keep it nice and fresh.
Right.
They're all slip sheeted, so we can put sort of pallets of tea together very quickly, very easily, and they're shipped over, so again, very low carbon footprints.
Yeah.
Environmentally, it really doesn't have a huge impact coming over here because everything, as I say, is shipped.
Yeah.
Very, very little tea is air freighted because it just isn't cost effective for one thing, let alone environmentally.
Sure.
I'm
Good.
persuading Claire to supply Wiggly's with kilo sacks.
Well, I was thinking about this because wouldn't these make a great addition to the Wiggly Christmas hamper as well? You know,
Absolutely,
I mean,
but-
possibly a bit late this year,
Yeah.
but certainly for
I think so.
future
but I
consecutive
said to
Christmases.
Claire, our customers, they love things like this. What
Yeah.
a fantastic story, and it's just so beautiful.
Well, I think more importantly as well
But
is
we
it
need
is genuinely a very tasty product, and
Yeah.
and
Thanks,
ultimately it also what is quite nice is things like this are wonderful in their essence because it's somebody, Claire obviously, who's made that little bit more effort with her life and got on with something that's kind of inspirational and is producing something that's particularly endearing and tasty. So it's great, isn't it?
It is an inspiration, I think. Now, dear listener, if you're that one person out there who said you didn't like tastings anymore, sorry about that, but it was worth it, wasn't it? Because what a wonderful Wiggly podcast to have.
Fabulous.
And I've just got one last mistletoe fact before we leave. The common name for mistletoe is derived from the berries eaten by birds, usually the mistle thrush. The sticky juice of mistletoe berries was used as an adhesive to trap small animals or birds.
Right.
A handful of ripe fruits are chewed until sticky, and then the mass is rubbed between the palms of the hand to form a long, extremely sticky strand, which is then coiled round thin tree branches where birds perch. When a bird lands on it, it gets stuck to the branch, and then it's easy to catch by hand.
Yeah, good lord. But more importantly, what I was going to say is Sarah's grandfather used to use that particular type of glue to catch goldfinches because, of course, years ago, several decades ago, I mean, how things have changed, fortunately, but he used to use that and catch goldfinches and sell them, and which, looking back, is probably quite sad. But at the time, of course, people thought nothing of it. But it's possibly one of the reasons why goldfinch numbers declined to the extent that they did. Fortunately, they're back now because instead of gluing them to the branches of trees, we feed them on Niger Sea.
And on that note, Wiggly Wigglers has a special offer on Wiggly Finch Energy coming up. Rocket! Okay, so it's the longest ever, I think, Wiggly podcast, but I reckon it's one of the best. We haven't got a time for a Monty cast, so thanks, Monty, but not today, love. Hey? We're going to leave you from the Wiggly sofa. It's nearly Christmas, so I thought it was time for the three of us to start singing in the normal fashion. So here we go. Mistletoe and tea. How's it going?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I thought you were going to say something simple like, you know, hark
Jingle bells or something, yes.
Sing or something.
Yeah.
Oh yes, well that'll be fine.
It's a new
Here we
one.
go. Jingle tea, jingle
tea, jingle all the way.
Oh, what fun it is to ride on a tea-driven horse and reindeer sleigh.
Oh, very good.
Trumpers tea, trumpers. Anyway,
Very good.
thank you so much. Have a lovely
That's
Christmas from Claire. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for asking me. It's been a pleasure.
Great
It's
tea.
completely enlightening.
And Rich, oh, we haven't mentioned your podcast. That'll be for next time.
Next time.
From Rich on the Wiggly Sofa and me, Heather on the Wiggly Sofa, have a lovely Christmas. And in the meantime, if you want more Wiggly podcasts, go to www.wigglyWigglers.co.uk/podcast. And if you could possibly take the time after you've listened to us for 200 and something hours, if you could just bother, compared to this freebie, to pop along and do a review, because I look weekly and I can't tell you how devastated I am if there isn't one. So, you know, we're giving our best, we're giving the show. Give us a review, you miserable Scrooge, for God's sake!
Do you think that's going to work?
Bye.
Bye.
Happy Christmas. Season of goodwill.